We work so you can play. MiniWarGaming's Warhammer Fantasy League Bat Rep.
Hey there, MiniWarGamers. Off to the side here in this very loud Black Knight games. For game like 8 or 9, I'm starting to lose track. But anyway, we've got Chris and Luke, Bretonnians, Skaven, because, I mean, if you haven't gotten used to Luke yet, start getting used to him, because he's going to be here again. So we'll show you the armies, and we are doing a Blood and Glory, and it's 2,500 points, right guys? Cool. And I'll show you the armies and get this underway.
And here we have the Skaven lined up, and right now, both of his wizards, they are Plague. So once again, he's got his level 4 on the bell, he's got a BSB next to it, and then his unit of clan rats. We've got a level 2 Plague with a bunch of Plague monks and the Plague banner. We've got the Doom Wheel, the Hell Pit, we've got Squeal, and then we've got a bunch of Ratmen. We've got a Lightning Cannon and a Catapult. There we go. And that is 2,500 points of Skaven. Here we've got the Bretonnians lined up here. We've got a couple of Yeomen, another unit of Yeomen. We've got a Paladin off by himself. Two groups of a group of skirmishers. We've got some Pegasus Knights. Now we've got 3 units of Knights here. These are Grail Knights, and they have a level 4 with them. These are Errants. And then we've got a unit of Knights of the Realm with 3 guys in the front. We've got a Lord, and then we have 2 Paladins, and one of them is a BSB. And then over here, yeah, we've got the Pegasus Knights and Trebuchet, and then another Trebuchet. And that is 2,500 points of Bretonnians. Here they are all lined up and ready to go, already have deployed, and rolling off to see who gets first turn, but the Bretonnians are going to pray, and therefore the Skaven have first turn. And so here we go into Skaven turn 1 after the Vanguard move by these Pegasus Knights. Now he was going to fly right on up, but then he realized that those Ratmen can kind of whip around and decided instead that he's going to pull back a little bit so that he doesn't get charged. Here we go, this Doom Wheel moves off 3d6 straight ahead. After that we've got the Hell Pit Abomination moving forward 3d6 as well, because it moves on a random direction. It only moves up 9 inches though, so not quite going as fast as you would like it. The Plague Monks then march up, moving up as fast as they can, trying to get up behind the Doom Wheel. The other Ratmen, or the Giant Rats, move up, and then the Storm Vermin, they're not regular clan rats, they're Storm Vermin, move up. And then the channel dice begin, the power dice, whatever. And so no channels for the Ratmen, but they do get their +1 and a 5 up, and then the other guys did not. First thing, he's putting Scorch down right on the center of that unit. It does go off, and trying to dispel it, they do dispel it, so no Scorch this round. Next, he's casting Wither onto that individual character, which does go off, but is then immediately dispelled. Now he's going to try and cast Plague, once again aiming for the Errant, or not the Errant Knights this time, he's aiming for those Yeomen. He tries to dispel it, and does successfully. Or does not successfully, sorry. It went off, and now he wounded them, lost 3 of them. It then bounces on a 6, so it moves to the next unit that he chooses, so he wants to hit the Errants. And so he's got to do toughness tests on everybody in the unit. So pass, pass, pass. Now the Sorcerer. Here we go, she's got a 3, she fails. But she fails her ward save as well, and goes down to 1 wound. The rest, lots of them pass their ward saves. Lots of them passed their tests, but 3 of them passed the, 3 of them had to make ward saves, which one of them failed. He then rolled a 1, so the Plague then bounces to his own unit, which it didn't get hurt, but then he rolls another 1, so it bounces from there, landing on the unit of large rats, who all of them have to take toughness tests, and they're only toughness 3, and if they fail, they just die. So the first roll off on 19 of them, he loses 10, and then he's got to roll another 30 of these, and loses another, I think, like 16 of them. And then it doesn't bounce anymore. Panic check, the Yeomen stay. The Clan Rats, or the Giant Rats, they actually stay as well. And now the Doom Wheel is going to shoot, and it shoots off at the nearest unit 3 times, at strength 4 in this case, killing 2 of them. He's then going to try and fire his Warp Lightning Cannon, which misfires and dies. Then he tries to fire his Catapult, and it gets a direct hit. So his Skull Catapult there, it gets a direct hit. Here we go, he's got a 4-up ward and loses 2 of them. And now against the other guy, it's 1 model in this unit. He does not take a wound, and the Grail Knight does not take a wound. So the Bretonnian turn, he's declaring his charges here. Basically everybody's going for everyone. The Grail Knights try and charge the Giant Rats, which fail. The Errants try and charge the Hell Pit Abomination, which passes, so they make their charge after successfully passing a terror test. And so they charge up going into combat against the Hell Pit. And then we've got the other knights that are charging in. These are the errants up against the Screaming Bell, or not the bell, the wheel. This lone guy here, now we were debating about whether or not he could march and shoot, and the answer was no. So he moves up. The little yeomen move all over the place trying to get in position. His unit of skirmished archers march and try and get up a little ways so they can start taking some shots off, but unfortunately they're just too far and out of line of sight of pretty much anything that they could shoot at. Magic phase begins. He gets 7 power dice, no channels. The rats do get a channel, so they're tied. So he tries to do Pan's Impenetrable Pelt on the unit of knights right there. And he boosts it to try and boost all the characters there, which fails to go off. There we go. So that's pretty much the end of that, because he tries to shoot a catapult. It does deviate a little bit, hitting a number of rat men there, killing like 7 or 8 of them, I think. Yeah, there you go. You can see the whole rank gets thrown away. And now firing yet another catapult right into the middle of the Plague Monks, because he knows it's coming up, but he rolls a miscast, or misfire, unfortunately though, or fortunate rather. He doesn't lose his trebuchet. He then fires the flamethrower that's on the end of his spear from his noble there, and it does kill a few rats as well. Impact attacks as the knights now charge in against the Hell Pit Abomination. They've got lots of attacks, and it turns out they actually have the flaming banner, and so it has no save against their attacks, and they're basically able to do 3 or 4 wounds to it right there, knocking it down to 2 wounds left. It attacks back. It has 3d6 attacks thanks to rolling a 4. So tons of attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s. He makes a number of his normal armor saves, but he then also has his ward save, but he fails 2 of those. And now the stubborn Hell Pit Abomination stays where he is, but does reroll thanks to the bell, giving everyone the ability to reroll this turn. Here we go. 3 impact attacks from the bell, because it always does impact attacks, and he does fail one of those saves, or both of those saves, but he does have his ward save, which he fails one of those, and so one of his paladins is wounded. The first lord attacks, hitting on 3s, and he does have a heroic killing blow, so on a 6, the bell is killed. He rolled 2 heroic killing blows, killing the Screaming Wheel. They then overrun, which makes them turn and face as if they were charging this unit, because it would bring them into combat. And now they move in as close as they can, because they couldn't close the door due to the building. The rats have to close the door on them. So here we are at the end of turn 1. The large number of rats were wiped out by other rats. The cannon was destroyed from a misfire. The Hell Pit's in combat with guys who have burning weapons. They ran down the Doom Wheel and are now ready to fight against everything else. But the Bell and its main army is now lined up against one guy and a bunch of yeomen. So the Skaven begin charging into that lone knight who holds his ground against them. And the magic phase begins. Getting a half-decent number of power dice, trying to channel on the Bretonnians, and they do not. The Ratman does and does not. So here we go, trying to cast Wither onto the unit of Knights of the Realm. Knights Exemplar. Ooh, thinking I'm playing War Machine. Goes off, unable to dispel it, and so they are -1 toughness for the rest of the game. So he then dispels this, making the wizard on top of there having to take a ward save, and he fails it, but the unit now gets hit by nothing because he dispelled it. Here we go, he's trying to do a strength 2 hit against the entire unit with his Plague Monk there, which unfortunately failed. He did need to roll a 5 with his bound item. Here we go, ringing the bell. And it's basically what happens is now we roll off for each building. And on a 6, they're destroyed. So on a 6, that building is destroyed. All of he's got his little warpstone tokens in there. This building is not destroyed. The next building is destroyed. So here we go, we lose another piece of terrain. The next one we roll, and it is not. The one that really matters is not, and the last one in the far corner there is not. So 2 of the buildings were destroyed thanks to the bell ringing. The catapult misses. The knight's now staring down this unit, and he does get his impact attacks first, which a few hits against the unit there. So here we go, on a 2+, he discounted the first one thanks to his magic shield. And then he has a 5-up ward save against the 2 he failed, and he passes them both. So he then challenges, and because of his special ability, the Skaven player could not refuse the challenge. And so he didn't kill the rat man with his attacks from his knight. The rat then attacks back. It's just the champion out of the unit. Does no wounds, but the horse attacks, hits, wounds, and now he's got to make his 5-up armor save, which he fails, and so the Bretonnian wins the challenge, but loses combat, so he's at like leadership 3, and he's falling back, but he does get the reroll thanks to the BSB, but he fails it anyway, so he runs, and the rats overrun him. So they kill him, and they actually charge directly into the next unit here. And so, bam, they're now in combat. Here we go, the knights passing their terror check, now having to go up against this hell pit, who then attacks them, and 3 of them get killed because he just kind of eats them, and they fail their ward save. They attack back now, the guys in the front ranks there, hitting on 4s, wounding on 6s, and they do get 2, and so they kill. These guys just kind of do a reform now, staying where they were so they could continue to charge the Skaven in their following turn. Challenge first off between the BSB and his Plague Priest, and he does get a hit and a wound, does 1 wound to the Priest, and then the Priest attacks back, getting 1 hit, but he gets a reroll thanks to his banner, and so 4s to wound, or 3s to wound rather. He does have Wither up. Normally it would be 4s, but it's 3s now, and he does reroll. So he gets 2 wounds, and he fails one of them. He's got a 6-up, and he fails that as well, so he dies because that BSB had already taken a wound. Here we go. We've got the Lord attacking. He kills 2 of them outright, and then the next Paladin attacks, doing 1 wound, killing yet another one, and now getting hits from the damsel, which does nothing, and then the rest of the errants, they get a bunch of hits and a bunch of wounds, killing off like 6 or 7 more. Their horses then attack, because we just wanted to do all of it, because it's all at the same time, so he kills a few more rats. The rats now get to attack back, but he does have to allocate most of his attacks against either the Lord or the Paladin, who are in the front rank, who both have very good saves. So the Lord makes all of his saves. Now the attacks against the other Paladin, and he's hitting on 4s, re-rolling, and then wounding on 4s, re-rolling. And so he gets a bunch more saves. He fails one of them, but he does have his re-rollable save, fails it again, and then he makes his ward save on a 6-up, but he does fail that, so he takes 1 wound. And there we go, but the Skaven lose combat. They do fail, but they re-roll thanks to the BSB, which they fail anyway, so they flee. They're now being pursued by the unit of Knights of the Realm. So here we go. He rolled off to flee already. He rolled a 12, and we made him have to roll it because he would have pursued. We all agreed that that's what would have happened there, regardless of the fact that he should have technically waited before doing that fleeing. Bretonnian turn begins again, declaring a bunch of charges, and the Pegasus Knights are charging the catapult. The Errants are charging the rats. The Grail Knights are also charging the giant rats, and then of course his Knights of the Realm are charging into the Plague Monks who fled. And then he has to try and pursue them, and he does actually catch them on an 18 and runs them down. So the entire unit of Plague Monks is destroyed, and these guys move into combat against the catapult. And after that, it's basically going to be magic phase. There's a little bit, I guess, that they can do. So they do a little bit of shuffling around here, because most of the armies are engaged. So magic phase begins. He gets a nice solid 10 power dice, and the Skaven don't dispel. Tries to do lower beasts to buff their toughness, and he does get a miscast, which he rolls a 3, so a large strength 10 template over top, hitting and wounding his guy there. Tons of 5-ups he's got to make, and he fails a whole bunch, so he loses like 3 or 6 of his knights here. Then on a roll of a 1, 2, 3, his wizard gets killed, and he fails it, and so the wizard is slain. So he loses his wizard, and then 2 more guys in the other unit are killed, so he lost like 400 points from his own spell, thanks to that miscast, which is definitely not a good thing. And the rats dispel his other lore of beast, the Curse of Vanir here that he tried to get off. Attacking now between the catapult and the Pegasus Knights. The Knights hit and wound and kill it. Well, it actually has 1 wound left. Then the Pegasus hit and wound and kill it. So that is the end of the catapult, and the Pegasus Knights get to do a full reform, turning around to face the back of those rats, because they'll plan on countercharging as well, seeing as now things are looking bad for the Bretonnians. Squee picks a challenge with one of the knights there, and he does get a hit and a wound. Now you're not allowed armor saves against his attacks, and he does fail his save, so yet another Grail Knight is slain from the Ratmen. The other knights attack, killing one of the rats. The rats themselves now get to attack against the unit, getting a few wounds, but he does have a 2-up save against the rest of these guys, so he attacks, doing a few more wounds, but once again, 2-up save, and then a 6-up ward save, and he fails it, so one of the errants gets killed. There we go, horses attack, getting 1 hit and 1 wound, killing yet another one of his rats, and A few more horse attacks from the other guys, which does another wound, killing yet another rat. And so the rats are stubborn, but they fail their leadership and then they start to flee, now being pursued by both the errants and the Knights of the Realm. Or not Realm, they are Grail Knights, but unfortunately they do get away, and so they're running right into the Pegasus Knights who are waiting. Here we go, we've got the Screaming Bell doing its impact attacks, killing off one of the yeomen. Here are the yeomen trying to stand their ground against it, but things are not looking good for those yeomen over there. So the rats attack, because they of course attack first, and they have large weapons, or halberds, so they do 3 wounds. One yeoman is left hanging off the back of his horse, he misses, and then the rat ogre attacks, hitting him and crushing him. So he decides to do his free reform, having won the combat, and turns to face the surviving yeomen and the archers that are over that way. Skaven turn begins with him charging into that yeoman unit, because why not, he might as well. So there we go. Magic phase, tons of power dice, and a channel, but these guys flee off the board. So moving into the magic phase, they get only 3 power dice, doesn't channel, and the Bretonnians do channel, so it's 2 to 3, and that's basically it. He tries to cast Scorch onto the unit of archers here, which does go off, but is easily dispelled by the Bretonnians. He then rings the bell and gets a huge roll, does strength 6 hit to the bell and the guy on it, and so he does a couple wounds to himself there, which is not good for them, killing one of those little fellas. And now we move into the combat. So he gets D6 impact attacks, which just slaughters all of those guys, and he then gets to make a full inch movement with the bell, thanks to the bell. So here we go, the Bretonnians turn around, heading back towards the combat here. He starts trying to do a few swift reforms and fails a couple, but the the Pegasus Knights march on ahead, trying to get in there because he wants to try and hit that big unit with all of his knights all at the same time, seeing as it's a very powerful unit to have to deal with and not usually a good thing. Power dice for the magic phase begins for the Bretonnians, trying to get the Curse of Henry here off. It does go off, but he does use his Dispel to stop it right then and there. Firing his catapult, it does deviate just a little bit, only hitting the edge of the catapult, or the Screaming Bell rather, but it does do a wound. He's got to make his 4-up ward, which he makes, and there we go. The little rats, they take a few hits, 2 of them get killed, and that kills off another 2 of the rats there. Firing another catapult, it deviates 8, which actually is a miss, landing on the far side. He fires a bunch of shots from his archers, doing a few wounds, but the Skaven do have saves against these, and unfortunately failed them. So here we go, into the Skaven turn as they charge into that catapult, which is going to just stand there and take this charge, because it doesn't really have much choice. Moving into the magic phase, nobody really channels here, and the rats get tons of power dice, and they basically are now trying to magic to death as many of these units. So he tries to cast Scorch on the unit that already has been hit by Wither. So here we go, casting Scorch once again. Small round template, strength 4. If you take a wound, you have to do a panic check. It does go off, and so he's got to wound the guys on 3s here, because once again they have been hit by Wither, so they've all got their toughness reduced by 1. But the problem is that the front rank has a different toughness value than most of the ranks in the unit. So we had to kind of go through and establish who's going to look out sir and who's not going to look out sir, and whether or not it counts as a flaming attack, because some of them have saves against flaming attacks, and basically he ends up making his saves on the front 3. But against the back of the unit, they all have to take saves as well. Now those guys, it's going to be wounded on 3. So here we go against the guy in the center here, the damsel. She makes her save thanks to the magic resist. And there we go. So now here against the rest of the unit, does a bunch of wounds, and he does fail 2 of the saves, losing 1, because he does have a ward save as well. But you got to remember that they do those as well as your armor saves. So here we go, ringing the bell once again, and trying to get off yet another Scorch, which does do a few wounds, but mostly against his own guys. Impact attacks, he gets 6 attacks. We just took him off because it was 6 hits on 2s to wound, and he only had 3 wounds anyway. Moving back into the Bretonnian turn, he starts heading back with his knights as his Knights of the Realm all turn around. His wizard actually leaves the unit, and his Pegasus Knights move up to the far side of the building, getting ready to charge through it if they need be. He tries to cast the Curse of Henry here as we move into the magic phase. And first we're going to try and channel, which they fail. So here we go, Curse of Henry here onto the bell. It does go off, but the Skaven are able to dispel it thanks to eating a power stone. And there we go. So we move into the archers, taking pot shots at the Skaven here. They do get a wound. He's got to make his 5-up save, and he does. Makes one of them anyway. So another rat gets killed. Firing the trebuchet, and it does miss. So here we go, moving into the Skaven turn now. They do a swift reform to turn around, heading back towards the Bretonnians here, and then moving forward about 5 inches here. Yeah, we're just, because they wanted to turn all the way around and then move up as fast as they could. But he rolls terrible for power dice, and does happen to get one of his channels though on a 5+. He's got a magic item that's let him do it. So he tries to cast Wither once again, which does go off, and then reduces their toughness again. But because he had rolled a miscast, he now has to take a strength 10 hit against all of his guys there. His Bell and his Wizard on top of there each have to take one as well. So the Bell takes a wound, and the Wizard now has to make its 4-up save, which it fails, and the Bell makes it save. So Wizard's down to 1 wound left, and now he's trying to ring the bell, going for an 18. He doesn't get it, but we now roll for the buildings once again. On a 6 they get destroyed. No, and this one is destroyed, another building far off in the corner. And so here we go. We're nearing the end of the game at this point, and the Bretonnians have started fleeing from these rats because they know that all they have to do is just stall for time, and they're going to win, because this is potentially the last turn of the last turn of the game. And so he's trying to Curse of Vanir here once again. It does go off, but the Ratmen are able to dispel it. So we're going to go into one more rat turn here. First he does Wild Form on his guys to raise their toughness, and then shoots a catapult aiming for the bell. The rat turn begins. He's trying to hit him now. If he can kill this unit, he wins. If he can't, he loses. He gets a pretty solid amount of power dice because he's only got magic to do it with. And so the first thing he does is try and scorch them. Trying to wound these guys now. He has to go back up to 4s thanks to the fact that they have +1 of their toughness. And so he's got to make a couple ward saves. He does fail one of them, so he has to make a panic check, which he passes. He then loses D3 of his wizard levels thanks to the fact that he miscast that. And so he loses a few more levels. But he has one more ability still, one more trick up his sleeve, and he ends up ringing the bell at this point. So he loses the wizard level and then loses his spell, so he can no longer cast Scorch anymore. But he does have Scorch on the bell if he rolls a 10, which he does. And so he gets to cast one more Scorch at these guys, and it doesn't wound the first guy. Does wound the second one, and against the last guy, or we're going to do a save right now. But he does make his save. So rolling against the last few guys here in the back, he gets a number of wounds. Got to make a 3+ on these guys, and he does fail one, and it's a 6+, and he fails it again, so he's got to do yet another panic check. If he fails this, he loses. But he passes on a 9, needing a 9, and so that is the game. It's a victory for the Bretonnians, just because they were able to survive while just ignoring the giant unit of rats. So stay tuned, we're going to have more games in the Warhammer Fantasy League. Happy wargaming.